Dr. Ike, what are your thoughts about the future of Africa from a digital perspective?
Thank you very much. First, I must admit that the first issue that we are facing is alienation of the ancestors. In the next 5 to 10 years, I see more ancestors leaving the scene for young people. Because technology, as it keeps improving, those who are the immigrants may start losing their visas. Those who are the natives will be very comfortable at home in the digital world, because the digital world has now become a community. Those who are not able to fit into the community are increasingly losing out. A very big man in Nigeria, very, very big man, and you know, in Africa, a big man, so many things. You're very wealthy, you're very influential, or you have many wives. Because for you to manage many wives means that you know. And then this man said he almost died because of what he read somewhere. And what was it he read somewhere? He read that his friend was sick and was flown abroad. And he was with this person the night before, and the man was very safe. But what he didn't realize was that the name that was given to the person who was sick had something different from his friend's own. And when he read it on the digital system, he almost collapsed. So, where are we going in the next 5 years? Those who are not meeting up will see that they are increasingly being alienated by those who are there. So, I see greater resilience. Number 2, greater resilience by the Nigerian, you know I'm a Nigerian, please bear with me. And I love my country. By the African youth across the world, because of their resilience, they will always accept what is good and then want to do better on that particular area. So I see a constant push from these young people that have vibrancy in their system. I see that happening. I see them building their own systems beyond what we are discussing today. And I'm glad to say that in Nigeria we have the Celestines, Archie, of this world. We have many of them that are doing well. And at a meeting yesterday, the DG of National Orientation Agency shared with us what has been developed, a made in Nigeria chat, survey, system, whatever you want to call it. So things are happening. And in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, it can only get better. But finally, in the next 5-10 years, we might have a system where governments can be uprooted digitally. Is Kenya laughing? I rest my case.
Wow. Wise words all the way from Nigeria. Dr. Ike, I think your doctor title is well earned. And I think the things you shared there are really profound. And that really brings me back to Ryan. And of course, you know, AI, OpenAI, your perspectives, it's shaping everything as we see it. You know, globalization, the future of work. And what do you see as the biggest challenges and opportunities that OpenAI for responsible AI in emerging markets like that? I'd really like to hear your point of view.
Okay, so the question was, AI Africa with OpenAI. I think a lot about. So I am. Hello. The success of AI in Africa depends on Africans more so than Western companies or providers wherever they are around the world. It is Africans who will adopt this technology. It is Africans who will find ways to get it to radicalize education, to grow young people in new ways, to create new businesses, to create jobs, to solve hard infrastructure challenges. And that means Africans need to be preparing now. So from OpenAI's perspective, I can give ideas, I can give challenges, but it is not something that we should or can possibly solve for this continent. And so the reason I am here and passionate about being here is by hoping to spark ideas and dialogue and readiness for that future, so that you are not caught on the back foot and you have a system and you have the maturity of infrastructure and social thinking to adopt and embrace those technologies. So what does that mean? It means readying young people and readying your workforce. There are kids who are starting in school who have access to tools now, hopefully, that no other person on planet Earth has historically had. You can self-teach yourself to be an engineer. You can self-teach yourself biology and math. You can do that in a guided institutional setting. Preparing young people, giving them access to these tools, helping them leap ahead educationally, and then helping to build a swell of young people who are entrepreneurs, who are developers, who are engineers, who can harness the power of this technology and really apply it. Maybe that's like one way to think about this. AI is almost like it's like a capability. It's like superpower clay. It's or bricks or steel or wood or any other thing that you use to make something. But if there is not someone to make something out of that superpower or out of that capability, it's not going to unleash magic and innovation and opportunity. So any emerging market, I think, needs to think about its workforce, its young people, its education, its skill development, and then ways also that governments can invite more innovation, more investment into these emerging sectors and spaces, and really create opportunities for people and infrastructure and training and skills all to come together to harness this superpower clay material utility. And I think that's the role of governments right now. There's also, of course, risks. And I do think governance from an AI risk perspective is really important. So there are globally a lot of AI safety institutes that are popping up around the world that are doing things like evaluating the safety of these models with common frameworks, with transparency, in ways that everyone can kind of understand, so that if we're on the same page about its capabilities, we're also on the same page of its limitations. But the task and call to action for me is how can you ensure AI radicalizes and improves your economy, that we find solutions to the jobs gap that Jan was speaking to where it pertains to Africa, and that we're at the ready with our workforce to bring those benefits home and to innovate from Africa, within Africa, and get those innovations actually around the world.
Thank you so much for that, Ryan. Jan, I'd like to come to you. How is Wikimedia balancing open access to information with the growing risks of disinformation, censorship, and content moderation in the global south? What does this tell us about Africa's role in shaping safer digital commons?
Whoa, that's a complicated question. And now we're going to spend the next 2 hours picking the entire machinery apart. But there are a couple of things that we have been doing for more than 20 years that have worked really well and that we just continue doing. So if you think about the communities we partner with that are most prominent, that's Wikipedia, right? We have 900 different communities, but Wikipedia is the most prominent one. And something we recognized very early on in the early 2000s that I think is holding us true now as it did back then and all the years in between is that we don't actually know very much about a lot of the communities that live in the server infrastructure that we as an NGO provide, right? We are a technical service provider. So we never had the problem with a moderation gap, like what a lot of societies have experienced with social media companies, for example. Because in our case, everybody has equal access, always had equal access, and has an equal opportunity to participate in the creation of our projects. So there are a lot of North African, but also sub-Saharan African volunteers, for example, who have always, and for more than 2 decades, played major roles in shaping English language or French language or Southern Bantu language Wikipedia versions. And in that case, we'll take that heritage and it will help us guide ourselves as well as the communities we partner with into the future. That is, we are convinced, continuously useful to people who find Wikipedia content useful, but also as we are going into the artificial intelligence age, becomes increasingly important to communities whose native languages, the languages they and their forefathers have always spoken, don't actually historically have a big digital footprint. So if you are thinking about Yoruba or Igbo, other Nigerian languages, for example, the most important training data set that helps build foundational models, but also all sorts of other applications, historically has always been the Wikipedia language versions that volunteers in Nigeria organizing themselves around their own values with their own policies that they're enforcing themselves. So it is a completely local Nigerian conversation without the Wikimedia Foundation in the room in any meaningful shape or form, except us paying the bills for the server infrastructure, which is, I think, the way it should be. And they will continue to do these things in the public interest as it serves their community, and they decide that for themselves. So in that sense, I think there is a good position that we have in our own ecosystem. If you're looking beyond that ecosystem, it strikes me as quite clear that one of the guiding reasons why our system has worked so well for us in the communities that rely on the content our volunteer partners create is because our purpose is pretty narrow, right? We are hosting communities who have decided for themselves, for their own reasons, that they want to create general purpose educational knowledge. And for that purpose, our model seems to work really well. But if you are thinking about this from a public relations professional perspective or from a government perspective, your purpose is much broader as a field or much broader as a public service. So I think it can be one aspect that is potentially informative as you are articulating your own solutions for the future, but it is most certainly not the solution that can help you solve the myriad of distinct problems that you are encountering and solving every day all across this continent. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that, Jan. So, Henry, and this question I think for me is quite appropriate given this forum. As somebody who's been a digital practitioner myself for many years and somebody who trains people in PR, I think one of the challenges we see amongst our practitioners is this evolution from being an immigrant to a native when it comes to digital practices. And looking at the corporate perspective that you have, with your work at UBA, what do you see as some of the communication strategies evolving to sort of reflect digitally empowered and hyper-connected publics, people who can quickly fact-check or be misinformed, for instance? And sort of what does that mean in terms of the trends that are shaping digital PR and corporate engagement within the African region?
It's become increasingly difficult to communicate digitally in Africa. And yesterday, as we heard, so Traore in Burkina Faso doesn't speak English, he's French, but there are lots of videos and content of him speaking English or churning out things in English because of the community that he wants to influence. And there's a lot of misinformation going on. And, beyond public relations, currency distrust, I work in the financial service sector that you also need a lot of trust to go because the things that happen within the ecosystem is very difficult. And we're moving digital, where you're trying to move people from the brick and mortar of the banking hall into digital channels. And you're communicating to these people using these channels, and there are a lot of issues that are hampering us. So misinformation is a key thing that is happening, but how you build the information that people can trust is important. And how you quickly respond or engage people are important. So previously, where it may take a bit of time for you to respond to queries and inquiries that come to you, through the power of AI and technologies that are coming up, we're using chatbots and things to respond to people in a quicker way that ensures that you're building trust and people can get response for what they're looking for. Now, development of these tools across Africa is not very enhanced, and I cover the West Africa region, where what happens in Ghana and Nigeria may be an outlier compared to other areas where internet penetration is not that high, and so you've got to deal with third party or agents that would.
Foremost, we have to acknowledge where we are and then where we need to get to, and what are the tools that we need to get to that place. One is we have to have a transition initiative that will help us to drive from traditional governance to governance driven by systems. That's very fundamental for us. And as a PR person, I see that as an area that we as professionals must lead advocacy in that area. Very important. Second is in the area of policy modernization. We need to look at the policies that our governments are carrying on at this time and then see how we can make inputs in such areas so as to help us to deepen, widen, and strengthen our policies towards the direction that the whole world is going. But as Ian put it, without missing our values. Because what define us are our values. Take our values out, we are nobody. It is the African character that defines the Africanness of who we are. And what are these values? We still respect our elders. I can't see Dr. Ali Balogun and call her Nkechi, just like that. But AI calls her Nkechi. And if she does get angry, they will add her son name on top of it. So we must teach these things. We are not going to leave it hanging. Next is that we have to build capacity. And it is our responsibility. And I keep saying our responsibility. Because one of the things I said earlier that digital technology is doing for us is that it has liberalized communication. And what that means is that it's either you embrace it in or you are embraced out. One has to give way to the other. So we have to take responsibility to build capacity and to bring out what is required to build capacity in our people as we move around. And then we have to build partnership. I remember that YBO is somebody. YBO means Yomi Badejo Okusonya. That's the immediate past president of APRA. He started a process in Nigeria. And that is, we must transit from a master of everything to an expert in something. Because when we build partnerships, strong partnerships, it means that I will recognize where my brother is strong. I'll recognize where Ian is strong. I'll recognize where Ryan is strong. Ryan and Ian, they sound very nice. And then I have to recognize where Moses is strong. And then we build a formidable team. I don't have to go it all alone because I don't have to know everything. Even when I know everything surface-wise or horizontally, you still have to go vertically to demonstrate that you understand what you're talking about. Let me stop at this point.
Well, fantastic. So at this point, I'd like to give you all an opportunity to ask the panel a question. I'd ask to request that you keep your questions as concise as possible. You can ask a question to a specific panelist or the whole panelist, but please, maybe we can start here from the front. If there's a microphone that's roaming, she can take the first question.